today. So we're going to learn why should we incorporate STEM, how our content standards will be enhanced by using STEM in your activities, how the engineering process can improve students' problem-solving skills, integrating STEM, and how the lessons are developed and delivered, and then how the standards are integrated into the learning experiences using STEM. Now, we are a STEM charter school. We've had a STEM teacher. We have a beautiful STEM lab, but what we don't have anymore is a STEM class. So to kind of keep that STEM vibe going, we're going to start integrating STEM into our classroom lessons. Now I know some of you are also going to be utilizing the STEM lab. I think kindergarten said you're going to be going on Fridays and using the STEM lab, and that's great because there's so many resources up there. And I also believe that Ms. Bonville has arranged for the prior STEM teacher to come in and give us an in-service on some of the equipment. So, but we're also fortunate to have all that stuff, but I bet you got tons of stuff in your classroom that you can use to create STEM activities. So like, oh, I hate it when I do that. I push the wrong button, sorry. Who's got tape, cotton balls, popsicle sticks, Q-tips, glue, any of these things, plastic spoons, all these things can be used to create a STEM activity. It doesn't have to be, oh, I need to know how to code something, or I need a 3D printer. It can be super simple, where your kids are involved and they're engaged, and that is going to increase their learning of that content. The studies have shown that when you implement STEM into your elementary grade, it increases the students' creativity. I keep going to the wrong one. Whoops, sorry. I don't move my arrow over, and that makes it really difficult. Okay, now I'm on the right one. It increases the students' creativity and their problem-solving skills and their critical thinking skills, because they've got a problem, they need to figure out the solution. So, I want each of you to think about when you were in elementary school. Now, for some of us, let's go way back. And I want you to think about an activity that you did or a lesson that you were involved in that you remember.
Dissecting frogs.
Dissecting frogs. You didn't just watch a video. You didn't just read about it, look at a picture. You were involved and engaged. Who's got another one?
I remember doing like paper mache, and I made a piggy bank out of like a balloon and paper mache.
Hands-on,
part.
figuring it out. If it didn't hold together, did you have to add a little more paper mache to the pig? You know, you had to problem solve. These are the ones you remember. You created memories when you were doing these experiences. And that is, I did a diorama of like the 7 layers of the earth, you know, with like the clay and the toothpick and the little piece of paper. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate it. So the reason why we remember these is because they were interactive, they were engaging, you were increased in learning the content, even if it wasn't science related. Okay. Now, beyond the classroom, it helps students solve real world problems. Just because they can figure out a question, problem solve it, come up with a solution, oh, that didn't work, do it again, in your classroom, that teaches them how to do it in the real world. And you know that happens. And that's a great skill to start developing when they're young. It also affects social behaviors because it helps build resilience, promotes teamwork, and encourages adaptation. Now, roadblocks. Some of the benefits of integrating STEM, sometimes teachers like, I don't know how to do this. So think about some things that you feel would make it difficult for you to integrate STEM in your classroom. Anybody have something that you're like, I don't have time? Don't have time. Okay, because every teacher says, please, give me one more thing to do. I want that. Give me one more thing to add to my daily lessons. I gotta have that. No, said no teacher ever, right? Then also, let's see, the rigid curriculum. Sometimes, I mean, we're pretty flexible here. We have a lot of autonomy with our lessons. You can kind of change things to meet your classroom needs, which is great. But a lot of teachers don't have that. It is, you have to do it this way. You worked, you know, for the other schools. You worked in the other schools. I know you 3 are familiar with, this is what you're gonna do. And we walk into your classroom, that's what you better be doing. And it's very difficult to then integrate something other than the content of the curriculum that you're given.
You're like thinking that it has to be its own separate time.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
With something else.
Right, if you can put it in with what you already have, you're just like, the reason why we teach these kids is for them to gain knowledge. And if giving them an activity that increases that is like golden. That means maybe you don't have to teach it again the next day. If you've increased their ability to gain and retain knowledge that they can then bring back up and use as needed, that's like the goal, right? All right, who thinks, I don't know anything about STEM. I don't know how to incorporate these things. I don't know how to use coding on the computers. I know Miss Bigley has been coding with their extra STEM day with the kids, and that intimidates me. I don't know how to code with second graders, but there's so many other ways to do it. There was a social studies teacher I remember who, I guess it was at my last school I was at, and she was just like, no, I don't know how to do STEM. I don't know all this. This was new thing at the time to get STEM involved. And I'm like, okay, so there's that Moore County Water and Oil or Water Survey Contest. We've sent, I think, Ms. Dawson, you've had kids that have entered that, right?
Right.
They give you a problem each year, and the kids have to come up with a solution. They can either write a paper, they can make a poster. They participate in that. I'm like, that's STEM. They have a question, and they have to figure it out. It doesn't have to involve computers. It can involve paint. We do STEM, but there's the STEAM. There's also STREAM, and we're going to get into that in a little bit too. Limited tools and resources, we did talk about that a little bit. Also, we have plenty here, but how do we use them? And that is something where thankfully, I think it's going to be within the next few weeks, Ms. Farmington is going to come in, and if not show all of us, at least show a handful of us that we can then share that knowledge with everybody else. Now, you've heard me say the engineering process, and if you didn't, it's because I didn't read my notes directly, but the engineering process is, it's used by when it is used by students, they are more intrinsically motivated. They understand there's a goal beyond, I just need to get an A, I just need to get this done, I just need to turn it in, I get a dojo point. It is them feeling a sense of accomplishment and achievement because they're using those problem-solving skills on their own. So when we look at this picture, the first thing it says is ask. You need a question. So I'm going to use one. Let me just randomly pull one off my computer screen. It says, how did catapults work in medieval times? Maybe you're a Magic Tree House teacher, and there might be a Jack and Annie or have gone to the medieval times and they've talked about catapults, and now you're going to have the kids create one. So then they go to the image. Some kids don't have an image of a catapult yet. So what can you do to help that? My idea would be pumpkin chunkin'. Who has seen the videos of the pumpkin chunkin', right? They love that. Destroying pumpkins. Show them a video. Let them have a visual, something they might be able to connect to, and that will help them get started. Now, let me see. Oh, I did it again. I gotta learn to move the thing over. There, now I moved it over. All right, so you need to get that into their heads. Then we're gonna talk about planning it. What materials are they gonna need to make this catapult? Now, you guys are gonna kind of be doing one here in a minute, and I'm gonna give you materials. I suggest you do that unless you're maybe in the STEM lab, you put a bunch of stuff out and say, what are you gonna need? You gotta create it, because I know you've done that. When we make our musical instruments for sound, you write down what you're going to need first, draw a picture, design it, then you go gather your materials. Does it make noise? Do you need to change something? So even that is a way that we incorporate STEM into our sound unit in second grade. So they can draw it on paper, plan it in their heads, talk with friends about it if you're doing teams. Now create it. They gather their materials, they make it. Now we go around that circle, test. Doesn't go anywhere. Go back and improvement and do it again. And you just keep going in that circle. Well, once they have success, they're going to share it. And that's an important part of it. It is very important that when they do have a successful project, that they are given the opportunity to share it. So, I pushed the right button this time. Your turn. All right. So don't necessarily look at, I did change some of these items just because time and you didn't need to have to decide, but you're going to get into groups. I don't care if it's 2, 3, however you want to do it, but I have bags here with supplies. And you have to make a catapult that works. You laugh. We don't
Bring it
all
on.
together. And I'll give you guys a bag.
Yeah, we'll do it.
All right. I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. Or 5. We'll see. Oh, girl, let's just see. So in place of the ping pong ball, I did put like a cotton ball. Also, if you don't have those supplies in your room, you can just roll up a ball of paper and use that as your ball.
I did a whole summer camp.
These are cotton snowballs flying through the air. But how many of you did it the first try? First time you flicked it, did it work? Look at them over there. Look at it. Who made a couple adjustments? And if you change something, did it go higher? Did it go further? So you kind of played with it. Now, if you had your kids, you'd give them more than one Lizzo song, to create the item. So, all right.